I'm Chef Frank, this is Protocooks, and today we're making Patatas Bravas. So what are Patatas Bravas, or Papas Bravas, or Bravas just in general? They're a potato dish from Spain. I think they were created in Madrid originally, but nowadays you find them all over Spain. And it's basically deep fried potatoes with a spicy tomato sauce and a super garlicky mayonnaise or aioli on top. And today we're gonna make my version. A couple of years ago, we took a trip to Spain with the family, and we had Bravas pretty much everywhere we went. So much so that by the end of the trip, we're just like, we just can't eat Bravas for a while. We're just done with them. And then maybe 2 or 3 months after vacation, I did a Spanish tapas night at home, and I made Bravas, and everyone was so happy to have them. And part of the reason is because they're kind of a serious comfort food. Even if you're not Spanish, they're super, super comforting, and you know, you eat them and they make you happy. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna make you happy. Here's what you're gonna need to make my Patatas Bravas. Whole peeled tomatoes, bay leaf, red wine vinegar, extra virgin olive oil, plain paprika, smoked paprika, chili flakes, garlic, eggs, potatoes, vegetable oil. Before we start, I want to talk about a couple of the ingredients. First ingredient I want to talk about is our potatoes. I'm going to use a Dutch baby or a Yukon Gold for this. You can use fingerling potatoes, which work really well. You can use russet potatoes. They're a little more fluffy when you cook them, but I personally do not like using red skin potatoes. I think they have a little too much moisture content and they don't really fry up all that crisp. The other ingredient I want to talk about is paprika. I have 2 here. I have one that's just a regular paprika. It says Spanish paprika on the label, and it's probably from Spain. And it's kind of just giving us a really kind of nice earthy tone and a nice red color. But the true Spanish paprika, or la vera, is pimenton, and it's always smoky, and it's from Spain, and that's what I have here. Smoky Spanish paprika, and this is what's going to give our sauce that really nice, like, smoky earthiness. Find good Spanish paprika. All right, let's start cooking. There's basically 3 parts to Bravas: the sauce, the potatoes, and the aioli. The first thing we're going to get going is the sauce, because it takes a long time. We want it to cook down and reduce so that the sauce is not weepy when we put it on the plate. And what I mean by that is when you put the sauce on the plate, does water weep out, right? So we're going to cook it out so that the sauce is nice and rich and kind of sticks to the plate and the potatoes. All right, enough talking. Let's make the sauce. I'm going to get my pot preheated over kind of medium heat. I'm going to add some extra virgin. And then I'm going to puree my whole peeled tomatoes. I'm trying not to make a mess. Those are pureed. So I'm getting my oil hot before I add the tomatoes because I kind of want these to sizzle and fry just a little bit. So this is going to splatter everywhere. Make sure you get it everywhere. But I want my oil to get hot. So I'm going to add it all at once. And we should get a nice kind of sizzle and pop. All right. Right, it sizzles, it pops, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it come up to a simmer. Make sure you get it everywhere. All right, this is coming to a simmer. I'm going to lower my heat so it doesn't splatter everywhere. I'm going to add my paprika, my regular paprika, my smoky paprika, my bay leaf, my chili flakes, and this is where it kind of can become a very personal recipe for you. You can add more or less of any of these if you want. I'm going to add a nice hefty dose of salt. Just remember that this is going to reduce down. You might not want to use a lot of salt. You can always season at the end. And I'm going to add a fair amount of nice fresh cracked black pepper. Lots of black pepper. I like the black pepper in this. Fresh cracked is always best. Give it a good stir. One thing I do when I stir is I'm using a heat-proof spatula so I can leave it in the pot. But anytime I stir, I'm scraping my sides down too, right? A lot of tomatoes tend to kind of go up on the side and they dry out. But I scrape my sides down consistently so that the sides are clean and it doesn't get all crusty on the sides, right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put this on the back stove and just let it simmer away on low, stirring every like 5 minutes, scraping down my sides, making sure it's reducing. And when it's done, I'll bring it back out and show you guys. All right, time for the potatoes. Like I said, I'm using a waxy potato, and I want to cut these in kind of bite-sized pieces. Not really small, but like a nice bite. So I'm just going to cut them and then basically put them in my pot. I want them to be kind of similar in size. So if I have a really tiny potato, instead of quartering it, I'm just going to cut it in half so that they cook evenly. Quarter them, and that's kind of what I want them to look like. So what I'm going to do with these now is I'm going to take them over to the sink and rinse them a couple times just to get some of the surface starch off, and then cover them with water. The potatoes are covered with water, and I'm going to add some salt, and I want these to be seasoned well. I like to season my potatoes in the water. They soak up some of that salty water and they have some good seasoning to them. So a fair amount of salt, not necessarily sea salty, but a good amount to season our potatoes. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put it on the stove, let it come to a simmer, and then I'm gonna let them cook until they're just fork tender. Tomato sauce is on, potatoes are on the stove, cooking away. Time to make the aioli. And first thing I wanna do is chop my garlic. Right, I have 2 cloves of garlic. Now, traditionally, aioli in Spain is made with a mortar and pestle, and there's no egg yolks in it, so basically I'm making a mayonnaise, okay? And if you're uncomfortable making your own mayonnaise, you could easily just use prepared mayo and kind of doctor it up with some extra virgin olive oil, some garlic, and you can do it that way. So I'm gonna chop my garlic, and I normally don't chop garlic fine, but for this, you wanna chop it fine. You can use a garlic press for this because we want it to be pretty powerful. If you want it a little milder, make some roasted garlic. Chopped garlic's in the bowl. Next thing we're gonna do is set this up so that we can make the aioli or the mayonnaise without anyone assisting us. And this is something that you learn in culinary school. You get a towel that's damp. It doesn't have to be wet. You pull on opposite ends. So I have this end, and you give it a little, one of those things. What is that called? I don't even know. Like you're gonna snap someone with it. Come here, let me get my director. Right? You get it, right? You kind of put it around the bowl and kind of get the size of the bowl, and then you just loop it over, and you basically make this little nest, right? It shouldn't be touching the cutting board, but when you put your whisk in there, it's not going to jump all over the place. So you have to make yourself a little nest, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is take my eggs, and I'm going to get rid of the whites and just use the yolks. Yolks in. Oh, just make sure you make a mess everywhere, right? Yolks are in. I'm going to put just a little bit of water and a little bit of my red wine vinegar. If you don't have red wine, you can use sherry, you can use white wine. Just don't use distilled vinegar. Distilled vinegar is a little too strong for this. All right, I'm going to hit with some salt. And I like to add my salt now because later on, after this is emulsified and it's a mayonnaise, it takes a long time for the salt to kind of disperse and melt. At this point, it has a lot of liquid in here and the salt melts into the water and the vinegar. Some black pepper as well. All right, and I'm just gonna whisk this up. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my vegetable oil and I'm gonna slowly add and drizzle this in. Okay, I'm gonna start my emulsion. This is the key point. Once you start your emulsion, then you're kind of safe. But at this point, before the emulsion is started, that's when things can go wrong. So go nice and slow. Slowly drizzle. Make sure it's incorporated. Your arm will get tired. But you'll see as you go, it starts to thicken up. And that's what we want. We want a nice thick aioli. So once you have your emulsion, you can add your oil a little bit quicker. I'm gonna add my extra virgin at the end. And this is just gonna give us some nice flavor. If you use all extra virgin, I feel like it's a little overpowering. So that's why I use mostly vegetable oil. I think it's a little thick. Let me add just a little more water. So you can adjust the consistency however you want it right now. Maybe just a little more salt. Okay. I'm gonna get the spoon, right? Just give me a tap. It has a little acidity. It's seasoned well. The garlic really hasn't dispersed. I'm gonna give this about a half hour in the fridge and then we'll plate up. The potatoes are done and this is what I'm looking for. They're cooked, right? I get a knife, I stick it in there and then they slip off the knife really easily, right? You'll see they slip off fairly easy. If they stick to the knife, they're still a little too tough. Let them cook a little more. One thing I want to point out is make sure that these simmer. We don't want them boiling really hard and kind of falling apart. So my potatoes are good. I'm gonna take them out of the pot and I'm gonna chill them completely, right? I'm gonna put them onto a tray, drain them well, and chill them completely before we fry. My sauce is done. Look at that, it's super thick and rich. I'm gonna take my bay leaf out and get rid of it. Scrape my sides down to make sure there's nothing dry on the sides as much as I can. Let's give it a taste. You'll see there's a little bit of oil on top and I like that, a little bit of oil. I think it needs a little more salt. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of red wine vinegar in. Mix it up real good. Nice. So I'm gonna set this aside, keep it warm, and let's fry our potatoes. I'm all set up to fry. My potatoes are cold, my oil is hot. I have a drain for my cooked potatoes and a spider. If you wanna do this in a pot or a fryer, fine. I'm doing it in a pan because it's a little easier to see. I'm probably gonna have to do 2 batches so this doesn't go all over the place. But whenever you're frying or deep frying, be really careful, okay? You don't want this to make a mess everywhere and you don't want to get hurt. So be careful, please, okay? So all I'm gonna do is, to make it a little easier, so I'm not splashing, I take my potatoes, I'm gonna drop them in with my spider. I'm on fairly high temperature because once you add the potatoes, it's gonna cool your oil down. So about half go in. Just gonna push them around a little. And let them fry until they're nice and crisp and brown. So what you're seeing here though, is with all these bubbles, this is all of the water kind of like cooking out of the potatoes. And you'll see as they cook, the bubbles will start to go away and we'll see the potatoes starting to fry and get nice and crisp. So all the water's boiling off now. When you fry, you want to make sure that you have it at a high enough temperature that you see these bubbles. If you don't see these bubbles, what's happening is the oil is getting into your potatoes and making them greasy. So we're getting there. Look at this. Look at how nice and crunchy and crispy those are. Just give them another half a minute. Shake them off onto our towels. Take it out. I'm gonna hit them with a little salt right now while they're hot. Just a little bit of salt right now while they're hot. And I'm gonna add the rest of my potatoes in. All right, second batch is done. Look at that, nice and crispy. Shake them out, get them on our tray. Cool. Let me get rid of this oil and we'll plate it up. I'm all set to plate. I have everything I need right here. Got my plate. I have my sauce. I'm gonna take my sauce and liberally coat the bottom of this plate. Give it a nice little smear of our Bravas sauce. All right, this is obviously for more than one person. I'm gonna get my potatoes together and just do a nice pile of potatoes right on top of the sauce. Make sure the sauce is poking out just a little bit, right? This is gonna be probably for me and 2 or 3 other people. Okay. Nice pile of our crispy potatoes, right? Get a towel, wipe off any ugliness. Okay. I have my aioli. If you think it's too thick, you can always thin it out. I like to dab this around. You could put this in a squeeze bottle, but the extra virgin gives it a really nice kind of yellow hue. Beautiful. Okay. I have a little smoky sea salt. Just a little smoky sea salt. A little bit of our smoked paprika or pimenton. And that is our bravas. Finish off with a couple of bamboo skewers or toothpicks, so it's easy to grab. And that's it. Bravas, patatas bravas. Couple of things before we taste. Potatoes. If you can have your own fresh potatoes, which we did this year, we planted them. We got about like 6 or 7 little potatoes. Best potatoes ever. If you can make these with your own potatoes, go for it. I don't know if everyone gets to do that, but we got lucky this year. The other thing is the oil. You can reuse this oil. Let it cool down, strain it out. I usually put it in a container and I'll use it 2 or 3 times to fry my potatoes just so I'm not wasting oil. All right, here we go. Now, usually what happens with this is everyone takes a big plate full of them, but we're gonna eat them kind of family style, and that's what the skewers are for. Make sure you dip it, get some of the sauce, you get some of the aioli. I need a little more. My Lord. Totally brings me back to Spain. The aioli is nice and garlicky and creamy. The sauce got some bite to it. Has a little acidity to it too from the vinegar. This is Spanish comfort food at its best. Okay, let's give one to my producer, director, partner. Thumbs up? Give me a thumbs up on camera. So at the end of the day, this is my recipe, right? People do bravas in so many different ways, so many different forms. Put in the description how you make them or your family makes them, or even your favorite way to have them. I can't wait to hear. Make sure you tell me where to go, because next time I go to Spain, I'm gonna try and visit some of those places. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We have merch down in the description. We also have a P.O. box down there. I wanna thank my Patreon patrons for supporting us. You guys let us do what we love doing, making videos. And that's it. Patatas bravas. I'm Chef Frank, this is Protocooks. Buenas.